Don't invite her. She slows everyone down, and frankly, it's embarrassing. The words weren't whispered. They were said in plain English, clear and clean, like a slap across the face, sharp, unexpected, and deliberate. Ruby hadn't meant to eavesdrop. She was only 2 rooms away, standing at the kitchen sink in her son's house, rinsing strawberries for the kids' breakfast, her hands wet, fingertips pruning. Lips parted slightly in disbelief. Her daughter-in-law's voice carried effortlessly through the open hallway, as if being overheard didn't matter anymore. She gets confused. The voice continued. She can't handle excursions or heat, and she always packs way too much. It's not fair to the kids. Ruby froze. Her eyes flicked to the hallway. A shadow moved past Daniel's tall frame, quiet as ever. He didn't disagree. Not once. No defense. No soft laugh. Just silence. The kind that confirms agreement. She didn't drop the strawberries. She didn't cry. She just stood there, letting the water run over her fingers until it turned cold. 3 weeks ago, Daniel and his wife Alice had told her about the cruise. A family adventure, they'd said. Key Largo to Nassau. A tropical dream before the new school year. Ruby, feeling hopeful, had paid her share of the suite without hesitation. She even offered to book the adjoining cabin so she wouldn't be in their way. Alice had smiled tight-lipped. Polite. No need. Ruby, just your company is enough. Apparently it wasn't. Ruby spent the rest of that morning doing what she always did, loading the dishwasher, ironing Max's tiny soccer uniform, digging Lily's favorite stuffed sloth from under the couch cushions. She laughed when the kids told silly stories. She listened when Alice explained the cruise schedule, nodding like she still belonged to the plan. But she saw it now. The quiet glances between them. The way Alice always added "if you feel up to it" to every sentence. The way Daniel never actually said he wanted her there. Just assumed she'd go along like she always did. Supportive. Helpful. Background. That evening, while everyone was in bed, Ruby poured herself a glass of wine, the good one, hidden behind the apple juice, and sat at the kitchen table in her robe. Her cruise confirmation sat beside her, printed and folded. Cabin 722. Ocean view. Shared bathroom. She picked up the phone. Yes. Hello. I'd like to cancel and rebook. The woman on the line sounded startled. Of course. Ma'am, may I ask why you're upgrading? Ruby paused, then spoke clearly. Because I've been invisible long enough. The presidential grand estate suite. Private balcony. Butler service. Adults only deck. Her own terrace overlooking the sea. Ruby didn't flinch at the price. She gave her credit card number like a woman reclaiming something sacred. She didn't tell them. She let them believe she'd be staying home watering the houseplants, walking the neighbor's dog, waiting for pictures in the family group chat. 2 days before departure, Alice sent her a cheerful text. We're so excited. Hope you enjoy your quiet weekend. Let's plan dinner when we get back. Ruby didn't reply. Instead, she pulled the good suitcase from the hall closet, the one with leather trim and wheels that glided like clouds. She packed slowly, carefully, choosing every item not for convenience, but for joy. A silk blouse she'd never worn, sandals with a slight heel, her late husband's old straw hat that still carried the scent of salt and memory. That morning, the sky was perfectly clear. She wore white linen pants and a pale lavender blouse, pearls at her ears, a matching scarf wrapped around her neck just so. At the port, a young man with a crisp uniform greeted her. Welcome aboard. Ms. Quinn, you're in the estate suite. She smiled broad, unbothered. Yes, that's right. He took her bag and led her toward the priority boarding line. No one called her Grandma. No one asked if she was meeting family. No one assumed anything at all. As she stepped onto the gangway, Ruby didn't look back. They'd be arriving hours later, chasing buffet wristbands and juggling sunscreen. By then, she'd be on the upper deck, sipping chilled Prosecco beneath a canvas awning, the sea opening wide and endless before her. She wasn't chasing anyone this time. She was arriving for herself. The suite was quiet, too quiet, almost unreal. Ruby stepped inside and let the silence wrap around her like velvet. Sunlight poured in from floor-to-ceiling windows, washing over cream-colored sofas and polished marble. Fresh orchids bloomed in a glass vase by the entry. The ocean beyond the terrace shimmered deep blue and indifferent. She stood still for a moment, as if entering someone else's story. But this was hers now. The concierge knocked minutes later. Young, polite, attentive. His name was Connor. He offered to unpack her suitcase, arrange dinner reservations, schedule spa appointments. "I can handle it," she said with a faint smile. "Of course, Ms. Quinn. If you need anything at all, just dial 0. We're here to make your stay unforgettable." She closed the door softly after him. Unforgettable. It had been so long since that word meant anything. She'd been dependable, necessary, available, never unforgettable. She walked to the terrace and opened the doors. The breeze kissed her cheeks, warm and salty. The horizon stretched endless, open. She leaned forward, her palms resting on the railing. For the first time in years, no one needed her. No one expected her to be anywhere. She wasn't someone's backup plan here. That night, she didn't eat at the buffet with families balancing plastic trays and whining toddlers. She didn't wait in line while Daniel asked about Wi-Fi, or Alice barked orders about juice boxes. She dined in the adults-only restaurant. A quiet jazz trio played in the corner. Candlelight flickered against the wine glasses. The maitre d' addressed her with a nod. No hesitation. "Ms. Quinn, table by the window." "Yes, please." She sat alone, confident, unhurried. She ordered grilled sea bass and a chilled glass of Sauvignon Blanc. She ate slowly, savoring every bite. No one interrupted. No one rushed her. She watched couples around her, young, old, quiet, talkative. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. She wasn't in the background of someone else's story. She belonged. The next day, she explored, not with a tour group, not trailing behind family members or holding anyone's snacks. She wandered the decks like a woman with nowhere to be, everywhere to feel. She found the library quiet and overlooked, the spa serene, offering eucalyptus-scented silence, a tucked-away piano lounge where a man in a fedora played Billie Holiday on request. She smiled at strangers and received real smiles in return. She bought a paperback novel and a straw hat she didn't need. She ordered tea with honey and read by the pool. Freedom was intoxicating. And then it happened, late afternoon. Kids were shrieking from the splash zone on deck 7. She was on deck 12, reclining with a fruit platter, halfway through a detective novel, when she spotted them. Alice's son had askew arguing with Max near a tangle of mismatched luggage. Daniel stood nearby, deep in conversation with a crew member, gesturing toward a clipboard. They hadn't seen her. Ruby didn't move, didn't smile, didn't wave. She simply turned her page. Later that evening, she took a long bath in the marble tub bubbles and quiet and lavender oil. She sank into the water like it was the first real breath she'd taken in decades. She thought of their cramped interior room, no windows, no space, no silence. She imagined the kids bouncing off the walls, Daniel checking emails, Alice micromanaging snack rations. Ruby felt no guilt, not because she didn't love them, but because love didn't mean being overlooked. They had loved the version of her that folded towels and refilled cups and made everything easier. The version who stayed quiet when decisions were made without her. the version who said, "Whatever works for you." But that version had booked a different room this time. She stepped out of the bath and into a cotton robe, poured herself a glass of water with a lemon twist, stood by the open doors, and looked out into the dark sea, still powerful. She smiled, just barely. Let them wonder where she was. Let them assume she was home, knitting by the window. She wasn't hiding. Not anymore. She was just choosing. The morning sun stretched across the horizon like a promise. Ruby woke not to the sound of alarms or children's cartoons. No cereal bowls clinking in the kitchen. No footsteps outside her door. Just the hush of ocean air, filtering through sheer curtains. The light was soft and slow, like the ship itself. She didn't rush. No one was waiting for her to pour milk or sign a permission slip. She took her time brushing her hair, applying a bit of blush, slipping into a crisp cotton blouse and navy linen pants that hadn't seen daylight in years. The Vanity's coffee machine blinked quietly. She figured out the buttons with a mix of amusement and pride. Strong brew, fresh cream, 1 sugar. She carried her cup to the terrace, barefoot, warm steam rising into the breeze. Below, the water stretched vast and certain. She sipped slowly, like there was nothing to prove. That morning, she wandered again, but not aimlessly. She moved with curiosity, not obligation. She stopped by the gallery, where modern art hung in golden frames. She lingered by a large canvas, swirling in deep reds and blacks. A woman beside her, silver-haired and wearing oversized sunglasses, leaned in. "See anything in it?" Ruby considered. "Looks like a storm. Right before it breaks." The woman chuckled. "I saw a divorce." They laughed. Her name was Teresa. From Portland, widow, 2 grown daughters, traveling alone after someone suggested she wait until next year. Ruby smiled. "I think we were meant to meet." They walked together through the exhibit, talked about books, aging, and the strange freedom that comes when you stop asking for permission. Teresa invited her to a dance class that afternoon. "No pressure," she said, "but the instructor's Cuban and looks like trouble." Ruby agreed, surprising herself. Lunch was taken in the sunlit bistro on deck 11. She sat by the window with a Caesar salad and a chilled glass of white wine. The server asked if she was celebrating something. "Reclamation," she said. He blinked. Well, happy that. That afternoon, she nearly talked herself out of the dance class. Her knees ached. Her back protested. Her doubts crept in. Would she look foolish? Was it too late to twirl again? But Ruby changed anyway. A loose blouse, comfortable shoes. She stood at the back of the dance studio, heart ticking too fast. The music started. The instructor, Mateo, was all charm and rhythm. "We are here to move, not to impress." He paired the women off. Teresa winked. Ruby took a breath. Step, pause, shift. She stumbled. Then again. Step, pause, turn. Mateo caught her gently. "You're not lost, querida. You're just warming up." And just like that, she wasn't afraid. She laughed, truly laughed when Teresa missed a beat and nearly knocked into a potted plant. They clapped for each other, moved awkwardly but joyfully across the floor. It wasn't about grace, it was about motion. After class, she walked the upper deck barefoot. The sun had dipped low, casting the water in molten gold. She leaned over the railing, hair windblown, skin warm. For a moment, the world felt huge and welcoming. Back in her suite, Connor had left fresh towels, her favorite tea on the tray, and a tiny handwritten note. "Ms. Quinn, I took the liberty of booking you a seat at the jazz set tonight in the Azure Lounge. Front row. You looked like someone who deserved music." She read the note twice, then she folded it and placed it gently inside her journal. She made herself tea chamomile. Just the right steep, and changed into a soft blue dress. No one would know how long it had hung in her closet. No one would ask. She wore it for herself. In the lounge, the lights were low. The pianist played something sweet and slow. Ruby sipped cider and let the music carry her. Alone, present, unhurried. Across the room, someone whispered, "That's the lady from the top suite." She heard it. She didn't flinch. Because this time, it wasn't a whisper meant to dismiss her. It was awe, and for once, it felt like the world was turning toward her, instead of away. The next morning brought silver clouds stretched low across the sky, soft and heavy. But harmless. Ruby wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stepped out onto the terrace. The sea rolled gently beneath her, the kind of rhythm that lulled rather than stirred. She stood still, letting the cool breeze kiss her cheek, until the knock came, not at her door. "Next one over." She froze, voices faint but unmistakable. "Room service for Thompson." "Alice." Ruby's eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat. The room next door. She hadn't checked the suite's adjacency when she booked, had only asked for quiet, for light, for space. Of course, upgrades happen. Of course, the cruise staff would try to please everyone. But of all the cabins on this floating city, they were next to hers. She sat down slowly, her heart thudding like an alarm she didn't set. On the other side of that wall, her grandchildren's laughter, Max asking for more syrup, Lily singing something off-key, Alice's tired sigh. It wasn't anger Ruby felt, not anymore. It was closeness. Too close. That afternoon, she stepped out just as Daniel turned the corner. He wore a towel around his neck, flip-flops slapping the floor, face still flushed from the sun. Ruby turned instinctively. She fumbled with her keycard, angled her face away. He didn't pause, didn't look twice, didn't see her. Back inside. Ruby leaned against the wall, breath shallow. She caught her reflection in the mirror lipstick fading. Gray curls pinned soft at her temple. Just a woman. Just a shadow in the hallway. She almost laughed. Later. She wandered down to the quiet cafe tucked near the atrium, ordered hot tea, and sat with a mystery novel she'd already read a dozen times. A couple nearby talked about a missed excursion, something about a child melting down. A schedule gone sideways. Ruby smiled into her teacup. She knew. Back in the suite, she drew herself a bath. Eucalyptus salts. The kind she never used at home because they felt too fancy for a Tuesday. As the water rose, so did her clarity. She wasn't hiding. Not really. She was observing, reclaiming, breathing. That night, she skipped the grand dining room, ordered dinner to the suite, instead lamb chops, herbed potatoes, roasted carrots, a glass of red wine that bloomed warmth across her chest. Just as she set her napkin in her lap, a sound, a voice, through the wall. "Daniel." Low, tight. "We have to figure something out. She's not picking up." Alice answered, agitated. "They won't let us rebook without a penalty. I told you we shouldn't have waited. I thought we had priority status." "We're not priority passengers. Daniel?" A silence. Then Max, small and serious. "I miss Grandma." Ruby's eyes filled, uninvited. Alice sighed. Softer this time. "She's home, sweetheart. You'll see her after the trip." Pause. "Lily." Childlike, clear. "She's not home. I saw her." Ruby froze. Daniel chuckled nervously. "What do you mean, pumpkin?" Lily again, firm. "She's on the balcony. With the hat. She looks like Grandma." Alice's voice dropped. "That's not possible." Ruby sat back in her chair. Wine forgotten. Let them guess. Let them whisper. She had no explanations left. That night, she curled on the terrace with a blanket and a second glass of wine. The sea stretched into black velvet. Below, the ship hummed forward. A gentle beast. She looked up at the stars. Let them suspect. Let them stir. She wasn't ready to give this up, not yet. Not this freedom. Not this version of herself. Let them stay in the dark a little longer. She'd lived in their shadow long enough. The ballroom shimmered like a dream that had no business being real. Gold-trimmed walls, tall glass chandeliers, champagne flutes catching the light like tiny galaxies. A masquerade, the final flourish of the cruise, where music swung wild and laughter floated like perfume. Ruby hesitated at the entrance. She wore the navy dress she'd packed, just in case, sleeves soft like smoke. Hem brushing just above her ankles. A velvet mask, deep violet, framed her eyes. Her hair was pinned, her lips colored just enough to remind her that she was alive. She didn't look like a grandmother tonight. She looked like a woman who remembered herself. A man approached with a smile and a gentle tilt of his head. Clark, the quiet-eyed journalist from the chef's dinner 3 nights ago. May I, he asked, hand outstretched. Ruby nodded, fingers finding his with ease. They moved slowly, at first tentative, like pages turned carefully. But then the tempo lifted. She spun. He caught her. And the ballroom disappeared. No one called her mom. No one interrupted. No one needed juice or help tying a shoe. She was just Ruby, free in rhythm, fully present. It wasn't until their 3rd dance that she saw them. Daniel, Alice, Max, and Lily, standing near the entrance, unmasked, still, like ghosts who had wandered into the wrong dream. Max's eyes locked with hers, first wide, but not afraid. He whispered something to Lily. She pointed. Alice's mouth opened. Daniel's brow furrowed. They hadn't expected her here. They hadn't imagined she could be this. Clark leaned in, his voice low. Friends of yours. Ruby's gaze didn't leave them. She smiled small, calm. My family. He gave a slow nod. They look surprised. They forgot to look for me. She turned back to Clark. They will now. They didn't approach. They couldn't. Ruby didn't give them that opening. Not yet. She danced one more song, then excused herself, stepping out onto the moonlit deck just beyond the ballroom. The air was cooler here, realer. She walked slowly to the railing and placed her palms against the cold metal. Footsteps followed. Not Clark's. Daniel. His voice broke the silence. Mom. She didn't turn, just waited. I didn't know, because you didn't ask. A beat. I assumed that I'd stay behind, that I'd be fine with being left out, that I wouldn't want more. She faced him now, mask still on, eyes steady. Daniel looked lost. He shoved his hands into his pockets like a boy. I thought it'd be easier, for you, for everyone. Easier doesn't mean better, she said, voice quiet but firm. It just means you don't have to think too hard. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did? He flinched. She stepped closer. You planned a family trip. You told everyone it was all-inclusive, but left me out like I was an extra napkin you weren't sure you needed. He looked down. I didn't know how to make space. You don't make space for people you love, she said. You offer it. Freely. Like a seat at the table. Silence stretched between them, thick with words never said. Then Daniel looked up. I'm sorry. Ruby nodded once. I know. He hesitated. Why didn't you tell us you were coming? She smiled. I didn't need to. He laughed, soft, disbelieving. Max saw you. I know. He thinks you're on a spy mission. I am. Daniel's eyes shone, and something in his face shifted. Not guilt, recognition. He said you danced like a queen. She tilted her head. I did. They stood there a while longer, neither reaching out, neither retreating. A new space forming between them, not from obligation, from truth. Finally, Ruby spoke. I'm not angry, Daniel. He looked surprised. Just tired. He nodded slowly. Me too. She stepped past him. I'm going back inside. He turned. "Will you come to dinner tomorrow? Just the 5 of us." She paused. Hand on the door. "Maybe." And then she was gone. Back inside the ballroom. Back to the music. Back to herself. Across the room, Clark held 2 flutes, 1 real champagne, 1 cider. He raised the latter as she approached. "For the Queen," he said. She smiled. "They saw me tonight," she whispered. "They finally saw me." Clark clinked his glass gently to hers. "No," he said. "You let yourself be seen." And for the first time in decades, that felt like the most powerful choice of all. The morning after the masquerade smelled like salt and promise. Ruby sat on the balcony wrapped in her robe, knees pulled close, a cup of peppermint tea warming her hands. The ship moved softly beneath her as if the ocean itself was listening. She didn't expect the knock, but when it came gentle, almost reluctant, she wasn't surprised. Daniel stood at the door. No suit, no pretense, just a wrinkled t-shirt, coffee in hand, his face worn from more than just lack of sleep. "Thought I'd bring this," he said, lifting the extra cup. She opened the door wider. No words. They sat across from each other at the table by the window, quiet for a while, like they were rehearsing how to be mother and son again. He handed her the coffee. "You still take it with cream." "I still do." He smiled small and unsure. Outside, the sea shimmered. Inside, the silence didn't feel empty. Eventually, he spoke. "I don't know how you pulled it off. You made it easy." He blinked. "I mean that," she said softly. "You were all so certain I wouldn't come. No one followed up. No one checked in. You said your piece and moved on." He stirred his cup. "I thought you'd be more comfortable at home. More useful, you mean?" He flinched. She didn't press, just let it sit. "You've always been the reliable one," he said, voice low. "The glue." "And glue gets spread thin," she replied. He looked up. "I don't remember the last time I saw you dance." "Maybe because I stopped." Daniel nodded, eyes distant. Ruby leaned forward. "I don't blame you. Not entirely. I let it happen. Every time I said yes when I meant no. Every time I stayed quiet because it was easier. I was selfish," he said. "No," she countered. "You were busy, building a life, being a parent. You just forgot I had a life too." He stared out the window, then back at her. "Max misses you." "I know. He says you're undercover." She smiled. "He's not wrong." Daniel took a breath. "Do you hate us?" "No. But I needed to stop being the background." He nodded. Not to respond, but to accept. A long silence followed. Then he said, "When we get home, I don't want to go back to how it was." She sipped her coffee. "Neither do I. I want the kids to spend more time with you. The real you. Not just the one who picks them up from school. And I want to be invited," she added. "Not assumed, not expected. Invited? You deserve that." "I do." They sat again in stillness. Not uncomfortable, just unspoken understanding. A knocking sound came from the balcony door, soft, polite. Ruby turned. Alice stood on the shared deck, a teacup in hand. No makeup, hair pulled back. Her expression was cautious, but open. Ruby opened the door. "Just enough." "I didn't mean to interrupt," Alice said. "You didn't." Alice glanced down, then back up, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry." Ruby looked at her. "For what?" "For how often I treated you like convenience, like someone who'd always say yes, who didn't need space, or voice, or a seat at the table." Ruby studied her carefully, then stepped aside. Alice walked in slowly. Max came bounding through a moment later, a crumpled paper in hand. "It's the ship," he said proudly. "But this time, I drew your room." He unfolded it, stick figures waving from balconies, and a giant arrow pointing to a terrace labeled Grandma's Place. "She sees everything," he added. Ruby laughed a rich, full sound. "I try." Later, Daniel stood to leave. "Dinner tonight, just us." Ruby thought for a moment, then nodded. "No speeches," she said. "No speeches, he promised." As he walked away, she stayed at the window, The sun was rising, soft and wide across the water. It didn't feel like forgiveness. It felt like foundation, something new, something chosen. And this time, she'd be part of the blueprint. The dinner was simple. No chandeliers, no white linen, no clinking glasses or live music. Just a round table in their cabin, small enough that elbows bumped and voices overlapped. Ruby knocked before entering, first time in years she'd done that. Alice opened the door with a quiet nod, stepping aside. Max grinned wide. Lily ran straight into Ruby's arms like she'd never left. Daniel was already pulling out a chair. No one said, "We're sorry" again. They didn't need to. There was spaghetti on mismatched plates. Paper napkins with lemon slices tucked inside tiny bottles of sparkling water. The kids were still in damp swimsuits, wrapped in beach towels like capes. It wasn't elegant, it was honest. Max sat beside her, scooting close. "I saved you the chair with the squishiest cushion." Ruby smiled, settling in. Dinner was a blur of little voices and dropped forks. Lily told a story about a bird she'd seen from the pool. Max recited 5 new trivia facts, including one about sharks never sleeping. Daniel passed the bread. Alice refilled water. No one directed, no one controlled. They just shared. Afterward, Ruby started to rise out of habit to clear plates. Alice placed a gentle hand on her wrist. "I've got it." She didn't say it with coldness or guilt, just certainty. Ruby sat back down. Lily climbed into her lap. Sticky fingers and all. No one stopped her. Max leaned against her shoulder and whispered, "It's better when you're here." She blinked hard, steadying her breath. "Do you think we could visit your house sometime?" he asked. "Not just see you at school pickups or Christmas. Like, really come over." Ruby met his eyes. "You can..." He grinned. "But I'm not cooking every meal," she added. "Deal," he said, holding out his pinky. She hooked hers without hesitation. Later that evening, as the kids brushed teeth and flopped onto the bed in exhaustion, Daniel walked her to the door, not all the way, just halfway down the hall. They didn't talk. The ship was quieter now. The kind of quiet that comes after the noise has settled, not vanished. Before she reached her suite, he stopped. "I should have seen it sooner." "You weren't looking," he nodded slowly. "But I am now." Ruby didn't reply. She didn't need to. She walked the rest of the way alone, heels soft against the carpet, heart a little fuller. In the suite, the lights were low. The air smelled of citrus and sea. She poured herself tea and stood barefoot by the window. The stars were out. The ship glided forward, steady and sure. This wasn't reconciliation wrapped in ribbon. It was rebuilding, messy, earned, quiet, but real. The final morning rose in warm waves of Caribbean gold. Disembarkation Day had a rhythm, all its own restless footsteps in the hallway. Roller bags clattering against the walls, rushed coffee sips and half-buttoned shirts. But not for Ruby. She took her time. The suitcase had been zipped the night before, neat, weightless in all the ways that mattered. Her sandals were polished, her scarf folded. The framed photo she'd taken on the terrace herself, smiling in the wind, tucked safely in her journal. She sat one last time on the balcony, sipping coffee as the sky shifted from coral to soft blue. The port buzzed below. Tiny ant trails of taxis and porters and sun-hat-topped tourists swarming toward land. Connor knocked gently at the door. "Ready, Ms. Quinn." She turned, nodded. He wheeled her luggage to the hallway. Bowed slightly. "It's been an honor." She smiled. "No one said that to me in years." "You earned it." He left quietly. She stayed a moment longer, ran her hand along the marble counter, the arm of the chair where she'd read every night, touched the velvet mask resting beside the empty wine glass. This space had held her. Not just physically, but emotionally. It had let her breathe, choose, return. Outside, footsteps again. Daniel's voice. "They're holding a spot for us in Group 7. He stood beside Alice, who held Lily in one arm, while Max tugged at her sleeve. Ruby met his eyes. "I'm not in a hurry," he nodded. They didn't push. Lily squirmed down and ran to Ruby, clutching a folded paper. "I drew you again." Ruby knelt. This time, "In a garden," Lily said, proudly. "You're wearing a crown." Ruby smiled. "What kind of garden?" "Tomatoes. And snap peas. And purple flowers. The tall ones. It sounds perfect." Max joined them, backpack half-zipped. "Can we visit? I want to see the garden. The real one." "You can," Ruby said, then paused. "But I'm not hosting a 5-course meal." Max giggled. 3 courses? Tops! Daniel stepped closer. "You okay?" "I'm good," she said simply. He nodded. Better than good. Alice looked at her not with tension, not with old defenses, but something new. Not quite comfort, but honesty. "I'd like to help with the garden," she said softly. "If you'll let me." Ruby didn't answer right away. "Then quietly we'll start small." At the curb, the taxi waited. Sunlight bounced off the hood. The air was thick with heat, chatter, the scent of sunscreen and concrete. Max hugged her first. Tight. No words, just presence. Lily followed, arms thrown around Ruby's legs. Eyes bright, Daniel pulled her into an embrace that lingered longer than habit, longer than guilt, just long enough to mean something. Alice squeezed her hand. And then they stepped back. She climbed into the cab. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. The ship had already given her what she came for. Not closure, not confrontation, but choice. Back home, the garden waited overgrown, a little wild, like her. She'd tend to it slowly, replant what mattered, let go of what didn't. She'd hang the framed photo on the hallway wall, the one from the suite balcony. Not as a trophy, not to prove anything, but as a reminder that she was never too old to begin again, that she didn't need anyone's permission to take up space, that she wasn't invisible just waiting to be seen. And maybe, just maybe, her story would remind someone else to stop waiting, to pack the suitcase, to say the thing, to book the suite, to dance, not for anyone watching, but because the music finally reached them, and that is always enough.